590 KXSP Omaha's ESPN Radio. It's time for the Front Stretch, brought to you by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Online at joeskarting.com.
You better believe we're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed this morning. Bud's all sorts of fired up. We got a lot to talk about. So strap in, pull them belts tight, as old DW says. Pull them belts tight one more time. We're going to talk some NASCAR and dirt track coming up. This is the Front Stretch presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Get online today, joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K. And get your special event, your booking, whatever you have coming up. Get it planned out. Call Bud. And maybe, just maybe, if you get it, you talk that sweet talk, he'll give you some extra races.
Well, I've been known to do it a time or two before, but yeah, you know, you can always try.
712-256-5278. Ask for Bud and get your special event scheduled. Or on a Friday, Saturday night, there's nothing quite like heading down into, maybe you're going down to the old market, swing over to Council Bluffs, get yourself some racing, and it really gets you pumped up for a good night of drinking apple juice.
Yeah, apple juice.
This is Turn 1, and it is brought to you by the Auto Connection in Lincoln. 21st and P. Triple-digit temperatures are just around the corner, and now is the time to get your cooling system in full working condition. Give Kevin and all the techs a call today. It's 402-477-8200. You can also go online at autorepairlincolnne.com. That's autorepairlincolnne.com. Well, coming up in Turn 4, we're going to talk about drivers that are driving over their heads. There seems to be a lot of it. You've seen a couple instances firsthand as, frankly, you spent yesterday, rather than driving an Eagle, beating and banging on your car, getting it back into shape because you got wrecked for a second straight week at Crawford County Speedway. We know there was a couple of Sport Compact guys that wrecked last night at Eagle and were sent to the hospital due to injuries. A-mods were also destroyed.
Sport mods,
excuse me. So we got a lot to talk about with drivers. It's week 2. Just whoa it up a little bit.
We got a long time to go in this dirt track season. The last thing we need to do, I mean, I know there are some fans out there that kind of like seeing the wrecks and whatnot. I remember when I was a little kid and we'd see a lot of the cars wreck. I mean, I'd go home, I'd get my Hot Wheels out, and I'd replay the wrecks and whatnot. You know, we're not there to wreck the cars. And I generally think the fans just want to see races and not a demo derby. And this early in the season, we need just to back off the throttle a little bit and just, you know, let's make sure we give them a show. But we'll get more into that in Turn 4.
We'll definitely break that down. Into Turn 3, typically that's our interview segment, but we're going to call a little bit of an audible today. There's been a lot that has happened in the NASCAR world and in the dirt track world, so we kind of wanted to free up Turn 3 because we have so much to talk about today. But next week, we're going to be right back on pace with Turn 3, and we're going to talk with the big guy, Bill Layton Jr. We've heard a lot about Bill Layton Jr. and mostly a lot of giving Andrew crap about finishing behind Bill Layton Jr. because Bill's got a little bit of talent behind that wheel. So we'll talk with Bill next week and find out what are in plans for his season, get a little bit of history behind Bill. I know I've saw him. I shook his hand a couple weeks ago at I-80, but I've never actually got a chance to sit down and talk to him. So we'll do that next week. Really excited about that, too. And then in Turn 2, as always, it's the Fast 5 stories that are dominating the NASCAR world. Before we get to all of that, though, let's talk the All-Star race. Nice for you last night. You were actually able to sit down and relax and kind of watch a NASCAR race. I know we were texting back and forth, updates of what was going on, a couple of highlights. I think that was the best driver introductions I've seen yet.
The way that, you know, we went to Kansas City last year for the front stretch, and, you know, I seen pretty much the exact same thing down there on the front stretch of Kansas Speedway. But when they started rolling out the pit crew members, you know, the one thing I tell people at Crawford County Speedway or Eagle or whatever is this year my dad and I sat down and we had a talk. We actually have drivers. Well, obviously they drive the cars. But the one thing that, you know, we can have all the sponsorship in the world, but when you have a really good race team behind you, and you've seen my team firsthand at Crawford County, these guys are not exactly sitting there drinking sodas and standing around looking like goobers.
No, your dad's got to be the hardest working man in Southwest Iowa these last 3 weeks.
I mean, my poor dad, how he's not dead after what's happened to my car in the last 3 weeks. I mean,
boy.
We're having a Jeff Gordon season.
I think Jeff Gordon is going to give the next post-race interview of saying we're having a Buddy Ray kind of a season. I mean, you've officially eclipsed Jeff Gordon.
Yeah. But then I got Billy Schindel and Harley Meyer on my crew, And these guys, and I've always teased them that they're not the brightest individuals, but they're some of the hardest working guys. They can do anything I ask them to do. And
so what you're saying is, but it was good in the introductions last night that the pit crews got a little bit of TV time.
Yes, the pit crews, even in the dirt track world, the pit crews have got to get a little bit of love. They got to get a little bit of support. I would love later on this season, maybe as a preview now, later on, I'd like to get a pit crew in here and let's talk to them. You know, when I go to Eagle, my job, whether it be Eagle or Crawford, I-80, wherever I go, my dad and I said, look, bud, your job is to drive. When the car needs repair, just tell us what you need. Walk away from the car. Just stay focused mentally on driving, and we'll work on the car. And you've seen me race at Eagle and Crawford County Speedway, and I think it's paid off in spades where I don't have to worry about wrenching on the car.
Right.
Hey, guys, just do this. I'm going to go walk away, look at the track, see what they're doing. So
it's good to see these guys are getting a little bit of recognition, and they got plenty of TV time on. I believe it was Thursday night with the Pit Crew Challenge that the 48 team ended up winning, and because of that, yeah, no kidding. Those guys, I mean, listen, we may make fun of them because they have that gray area that they love to play in, but when it comes down to it, those guys are just playing good.
You know,
the pit crew's good. Chad Knaus is one of the smartest men on the pit box, and Jimmy Johnson's got a hell of a lot of talent. And I'm sorry, when you got three facets of your game that is on top of the NASCAR world right now, the best you can find, it's going to be hard not to win championships.
Yeah, you know, and the one thing I thought was really funny is that when they were introducing all 23 teams for this All-Star race, how many crew guys had their cell phones out?
Taking pictures as they're walking out. I thought it was really cool how instead of having just some guy announcing the drivers, they had the fans do it.
Yeah.
And this is just another way that NASCAR reaches out and says, we appreciate all that you do with us. Now we're going to interact more with you. And NASCAR is actually coming up with some new rules. I believe we've got a story on it in turn 2 for the Fast 5 of ways that NASCAR is just getting more and more involved with the fan community. So that was really cool to see that kind of stuff. As far as the race went, the segments, I kind of like this NASCAR setup, the way the All-Star race is set up a little bit because it's a lot like your heat races and it's a lot like an actual feature race for your dirt tracks, to where you've got 4 segments. Before we get to those 4 segments, though, we've got all the drivers who don't automatically qualify for the All-Star race because they haven't won a championship in the last 10 years. They haven't won a race in the last, I believe, 36 races, so the last year's worth of races. Actually, you have to have won in 2011 or 2012. So from Daytona 500 to the last race at Darlington, you had to have won. So a lot of drivers that haven't been able to accomplish that. And then also, if you haven't won in the last 10 years, the actual sprint, the All-Star race. So there was a lot of drivers that wanted to get in via the showdown. But I tell you what, Dale Jr., wow, he looked fast from the start. I mean, obviously, he just checked out. And then AJ Allmendinger, you want to talk about a guy who gets lucky. Comes in on the first lap because he's got a cut tire. So he gets 4 fresh tires, and he goes back out there, and he makes his way through the field, and he comes all the way back up to get that final transfer position because the top 2 drivers in the showdown move on to the actual All-Star race. So him and Junior transfer onto the All-Star race, and I was completely shocked. I was really glad I was sitting down in my seat when they announced this, but the fan vote was Bobby Labonte. And I'm not saying that like they could have picked a better driver. I'm saying that like he is not your most popular driver, not even close.
No, you know, when they announced that last night, I was like, for your number 1 fan voted driver, I'm like, well, Jimmy's already out here, Jeff Gordon's out here, Earnhardt. And what the hell's up with Earnhardt? No beard last night, clean shaven.
I think that's why he went faster. It's more aerodynamic.
It's all in the aerodynamics.
Right, the aerodynamics.
The aerodynamics.
So Bobby Labonte gets...
Bobby Labonte comes out. And it's funny, Bobby comes out, you know, and he almost looked mundane. Like
I think he was shocked.
Well, obviously he knew about this before they announced
they because it just depended on who took the first 2 showdown positions. Obviously, I think we can state the obvious here and say Dale Jr. was going to get into the All-Star race, whether he won that showdown or not, because he'd got the vote. But I think it was 2.3 million votes were cast for it, and Bobby Labonte ended up getting the fan vote. And it was really cool to see him go out on stage. He got a big round of applause.
Yes, he did, and I loved that.
And a lot less booze than the Bush brothers got.
The Bitch Brothers?
Yes, they got plenty of booze. So, as far as your segments went, Dale Jr. won the first segment. A.J. Allmendinger won the second segment. Jimmy Johnson won the first segment. Matt Kenseth won the second segment. Brad Keselowski wins the third, and then Dale Jr. wins the fourth segment. Lining up for a 10-lap shootout that I'm going to say it was just 10 laps. There wasn't much of a shootout. I tell you what, the announcers were doing everything they could to hype up those last 10 laps.
I thought the last 10 laps were really good. Jimmy Johnson...
It was pure racing.
Jimmy Johnson took off. Once he took off, okay, check out. We don't need to follow him. He's going to win. Let's go back. But with all four segments in the 10-lap shootout, I think hands down the most impressive driver last night, we were talking about this before we went to air this morning, Marcus Ambrose. Where the hell did you come from, Marcus?
That Tasmanian devil, that guy had a car that was capable of winning. I mean, he was
absolutely
he was bad fast. I mean, I think he was one of the top speeds out there. He had lap times, several laps on those final 10 segments that beat Jimmy Johnson's times.
The only thing, and once again, we were talking about this before we went to air this morning. The only thing I wish that they would have done was throw on 4 fresh tires.
For Ambrose.
For Ambrose.
Yeah.
I think if he would have done that, he would have been a contender because he was just as fast as Jimmy Johnson. But I think with like 7 laps, with 3 laps left to go, I think they actually showed Marcus's car where the guys were passing him. He's still hauling the mail, but they're passing him. His tires are going away.
Yeah.
Had he had fresh tires on there, I think that would have been a lot better off for him.
And thank you to the storm last night. I actually missed the last 3 laps of the race. I love my satellite, but every once in a while it likes to blink out at the most inappropriate times.
Cox Cable.
Yeah. Maybe we can get them as a sponsor now. So Johnson takes the win. Big momentum boost as we stay in Charlotte for next week for the Coca-Cola 600, the longest race on the NASCAR circuit and Johnson's home track. Really kind of a nice thing for those guys because they have struggled since they've repaved Charlotte Motor Speedway, or Lowe's Motor Speedway in Charlotte, North Carolina. So I think it's definitely telling that watch out. This 48 team is back to dominating Lowe's Motor Speedway.
Yeah, there's one other thing we have not mentioned yet that was really shocking to me for Charlotte last night. The 2 Roush Fenway motors blowing up.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Carl, if Carl's going to go out, he might as well make it look dramatic, which he did.
Well, I think Biffle upped him, though, with the whole fire coming out the back of the car and flames and everything. But, yeah, I think they were talking about last night, and Carl had mentioned it, that when you've got to go, like, for instance, next week, when you got to go 600 miles, you set the engine up for 600 miles, but you had a lot less distance to go tonight. So I think they tried some parts that would perform better, but wouldn't perform as long.
Right.
And just what happened was that the engines ended up blowing. But I'll tell you what, the most nervous guy out there was the 17 when he saw the 16 go up in flames, and he thought, "Oh man,
how long is my motor gonna last?
Yeah.
What'd you guys do to my motor?"
Yeah, no kidding. So, like I said, the 48 wins. He gets himself a cool $1 million check. I know Hendrick Motorsports definitely needs that $1 million check.
Hey, and what about Hendrick's riding on the side?
That was really cool.
Oh, you actually got to see that?
I got to see it. Came back just in time to see Johnson cheering for for winning the race, and then they showed a replay of it. So I got to see them.
All we got last night in Council Bluffs was a little bit of rain and wind.
I got a little bit of hail, but
pea-size.
It was.
You lost your TV?
Stop it.
Cox Cable. Your digital leader in today's age.
Our trivia question for today, this is the Dirt Track Week, so we're going to talk about a Dirt Track trivia question. Kind of a local guy here and somebody who has a good connection with the show, but we want to know what car number did Joe Koziski sport on his car?
His late model.
His late model car. What number did Joe Koziski make famous on his late model car? Go onto our Facebook page, answer the question, and you're going to get yourself 4 passes. Anybody other than
Chris
Boswell is going to get themselves 4 passes to Joe's Karting, and it's going to be 4 free races. Chris, if you answer it within the next 20 minutes, you're going to get yourself 3 passes. So you've got until 8:30 to answer that question, and then you're going to get yourself passes. So head on to our Facebook page. Just comment on the page that you've got the answer to the question, and we will get you your prize. Like I said, head over to the Facebook page. Become a fan of it if you aren't already. We had quite a few people join on this week. Seem to be liking what we're doing over there on the Facebook page. Answer the question, win yourself some passes to Joe's Karting. This is Turn 1. We're headed over to Turn 2 in just a few minutes. Talk about the Fast 5. This is the Front Stretch presented by Joe's Karting on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.